Welcome back. Got a bit of a surprise random one. Working on a 2-litre TDI VW Scirocco today. Got a hell of a job to do on it, so we'll just dive straight on in and get stuck in. Going to be doing some work on my wife's Scirocco now. I know since the death of Harry, since the Civic got sadly destroyed in some knacker driving a enterprise van, on account of that now, obviously she had to get a new car. She had this one about a year or so now, I think. Be honest, we've been all over the country. It's absolutely sound. I know it hasn't featured on the channel, but that's how it's been. It just hasn't needed any work. Now, since you got it, I said straight away, we need to do the timing belt, because even if it says it's been done, you always want to do it just to cover yourself. So if time belt goes, it's like major problems. Anyway, the long and short of it was, time belt hasn't gone, water pumps failed. No! So we've been very lucky. Let's just say I put the lottery on that weekend. I didn't win. I think I used up all my luck on this one. Yeah, the water pump's gone. So what happened was it stumped all the water, had a bit of a rattle. Couldn't quite work out what it was, you know, it was broken down the next town over, so I went and recovered it, brought it back, pulled the covers off, because I had a feeling, I thought, rattle, dumping all its water, sounds like water pump, but I expected the time belt to fail at that point. As I say, totally bizarre, the pump's collapsed, even though it's driven by the timing belt is still in one piece, so hopefully we're going to be alright. So we're going to get on today, and we're going to do the water pump and the timing belt. As you can see, let's have a look, try and get something I can point with. I don't know if you can see these little gears inside here. You see how they're not lying straight, so they're lying, like, rather than being parallel with the rest of them, they're lying off on the wonk. That's basically because that pulley there itself is collapsed, so it's the water pump itself that's collapsed now. She's been very lucky, as I said. The engine didn't pack up and stop working. I've kind of triaged it myself a little bit, just quickly. So what I've done is I've removed the water bottle, the top timing cover and the engine cover. I don't know if I need to take the engine cover off, but to be fair, I wanted a little bit of access to see what I was doing. The other thing that I've removed, I've just moved this from where it, I've just moved this from where it was, and the fuel pump. All I've done is I've just took off a couple of bolts in the bracket. There was a bolt here, and there was one underneath there where my finger is, you see. Now that's why I had to take the water bottle off, because I originally thought I could leave the water bottle on. Anyway, getting that done, I've just disconnected whatever pipes I could to move it, and I've just laid it over there just to give us a bit better access. Now I'm thinking I'll have to take this engine mounting off possibly, but I'm not sure. Again, I've never done one of these before. I'm just winging it as I go. Now what I've done under here to give us better access, I've took off the inner, well, we'll call them the inner shit guard, the wheel arch liner, the wheel, and I've dropped the bottom pulley off. Now take out the bolts for the timing cover. So I'll whip the timing cover bolts out, get the timing cover off. I've got to take the engine mount off, I will, and we'll go from there and see where we're at. So that was a lot easier than I thought. So you haven't got to take the engine mounting off, at least not yet anyway. It was literally from the bottom. Once the pulley was off, there was, what, 4 bolts on that one. 2 of the bolts hold the bottom of this on. I like that they've fur-lined it as well to keep the noise down. Quite like that. And 1 bolt in the middle, which was just up above there. So I'm going to mark each of the pulleys just in case something shifts once the belt's off. Once I've got everything pinned and I'm happy with it, I'll slacken off the tensioner and pull the belt off. Now, if I... sorry, this is a bit, you're all over the place on here, but if you look up in there, do you see the angle that this pulley here is lying at in relation to that? So that's the water pump there, and that's how it's failed. It's just literally just dropped over like that. So yeah, so that's the bit there that we need to change. It looks quite easy enough to change once the belt's off, but again, it's going to be the chew of getting the belt lined up, I think, before we go any further. But other than that, it doesn't actually look like too bad a job, so we'll get her marked up. Oh, sorry, taking you on a journey with us. So what we'll do is now we'll get her marked up, get the pins in, lock it all in nice and happy. I'll put, like I say, a little blob of some sort of mark, Sharpie or a Tipp-Ex or something on each of the pulleys, the fuel pump, the camshaft and the crankshaft, so if anything moves, I've always got some parts and marks of my own to reference it back off and put them back together again. Slack off the tensioner, whip the belt off, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to crack straight on, whip the pump off, because it's only like 3 or 4 bolts. Pull that out, and I'll hopefully next time I'm talking to you, I'll have a wonky pump in my hand. Yeah, let's get on. I didn't mind the light today. I've had to open the door. It was like absolutely sweltering in here. So that's the water pump. You can hear it. You can see it. I cannot actually believe how lucky we'll be with that, because if that had the time belt runs on there, if that had slipped off or done something it shouldn't have done, that would have been the engine fried, done, toasted. So the time belt looks like it's probably been changed at the interval. The time belt still looks quite new, to be fair, but I'm guessing what's happened is they've changed time belt, not the water pump. So my word of advice for this one is, if you're that far into the job, for the sake of 3 bolts, just change the water pump as well. You know, that could have potentially cost the whole engine for the sake of what the whole kit. The whole kit. I'll put a link up down below for what it was, but you need to double check that it's the same, because there's quite a few different variants. The whole kit, timing belt kit and the water pump itself, £114 delivered off eBay. You can't, you can't argue with that. And it's a Deco kit as well, so it's OEM parts, good quality stuff. Yeah, water pump's out. Basically the car's now as stripped as it needs to go. So the next thing, I'm going to pop the water pump back in. I try to find the holes for the top. As I say, I'm winging it, I'm making it up as I go along. I try to find the holes for the fuel pump and the cam, drop the pins in, the bolts in, couldn't find them anywhere. So all I've done is literally just marked all 3 pulleys. As long as all 3 pulleys are still on their original marks and I put the belt back on, tension it up, that should be good to run. What I will do once I've got the belt on and I've got it tensioned up, I'll physically hand crank the engine over 3 or 4 times just to make sure there's nothing going to contact or touch inside. Not saying it'll stop it, but if there's anything going to be there, I would like to think I'll be able to feel it. And then obviously I'll run it back around until we're back on our marks and just check that after I've turned it all, it's all sat on its marks. What I'll do is, as I say, I'll put the water pump on and I'll start and put the time belt back on, and the kit. Obviously the kit comes with 3 new idle pulleys as well, so it should hopefully be nice and lovely sounding once it's done. So yeah, we'll just take it from there. I'll stick it back on time lapse, see if it actually records this time, and we'll go from there. Just going to wait, and I'm going to stop the video for a second, because it's one of the things that really annoys us. So the people that design these engines and design brackets and design cars and everything all seem to be from the same kind of school of stupidity. So I've worked around this engine mount the whole time. It's been tight, but I've worked around it. Everything's possible doable on the engine mount. Come to change a kit, can't get this off. Just won't come off. All for the sake of, instead of that being a stud down the back, they could have just used a nut and a bolt straight into the block, and that would have worked. The whole thing would have come out as a one unit then. Would have been so much easier. Now, as it is, I'm faced with one of 3 choices. Okay? First choice, I'll leave the pulley. It's not rattling, it's not loose, it's not noisy. I could leave it, it will probably be alright, but do you want to risk it? If that goes wrong and fails, again, full engine. Second option, I go out my way now, remove the engine mount just to change that 1 pulley. Probably the most logical option. Option 3, which I'm going to try and do, because I really don't want to take the mount off if I'm honest, I'm going to put some mole grips onto that shaft and turn it out like a bolt. Now, there is a new shaft in the kit, a new stud in the kit. So what I'm going to do is I'll turn this one out, refit the new one with the new shaft. That's the plan. If that fails, I'm going to have to go back to plan A, which is take the engine mount off and go from there. Yeah, just something that really gets my goat. Frustrates us because it would be such a simple design just to put a bolt in there instead of a stud. But no, they want you to take the engine mount off because, you know, why not make things harder than they need to be? Rant over. That's it, managed to change the tensioner exactly how I said I would do it, just unscrewed the stud and swapped it around. So if you look, oh, has my torch gone flat? Yeah, the torch has gone flat. If you look there, you see the mark, see it's just slightly off, but I'll shuffle that around as the teeth on the belt lie, and it can only be right or wrong sort of thing, you know. I've got the mark down there. Again, that one's ever so slightly off, but again, I can tweak these a little bit with the teeth. And I've got the mark. What? I've got the mark there. It's just literally a matter of slapping the belt on now. I need to keep the tension on. Keep the tension on this side. Keep any slack to there because that's the tensioner there. So any slack that goes between basically that and the crank at the bottom. And then what I do is I just tension that up, and then hopefully, as I say, the line should be on the mark. I'll hand ball it round, hand crank it with my socket on the bottom pulley. Hand crank it around 2 or 3 full turns and just make sure the marks line up again, and check that way it'll also settle the belt a little bit, and any bizarre tension issues that I've got should be gone. So yeah, we'll get stuck in with that. Now we'll go, belts back on. So what I found it easier to do, hold on, I'll tell you what. Now we go, belts back on. I turned it over off camera, purely because I had, well, the guy over the road came in, asked how we were getting on, asked how I was getting on. He's kind of gone through a couple of little things. There's 2 seconds. Balance my phone up. Gone through a couple of things and just double checked my timing marks because he's the guy I borrowed the tool off. My timing marks were a gnat's chuff out. This isn't that sort of a... There we go. Timing marks were just a gnat's chuff out, as you can see. There and there. Wasn't quite that bad, but both my cam and my fuel pump were just a gnat's chuff out. But all it was down to the fact that when the water pump had collapsed, it had collapsed and it had put a bit of slack on, well, not slack on the belt, obviously it took the slack up, which in turn had cranked both pulleys, just a gnat's chuff that way. So anyway, we've double checked the marks. While he was here, he said there are actually pinholes to go in. It's about here, as you're looking at the pulley, it's about 7 o'clock. There's a tiny little pinhole, you can drop it in, and there's a tiny little hole there. He showed us where they are on the outside of the fuel pump pulley. A little hole in the back there to go in, and obviously the pin in the bottom that locks up. And we've turned it around a couple of times, put it back on, put the pins back in, put everything in. It's all lined up and matched up, absolutely perfect. So he's assured me that this thing will start, run and fire, no trouble at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to knock the camera off now because the video is going to be like ridiculously long. Nobody's going to watch it. I'll pop all the covers and everything back on, stick the fuel pump and that back on, all the trays and everything, the wheel, get it dropped back down again, and then we'll have a look and see how it goes. We'll fire it up. I'll do first fire up on camera, so you can either see it succeed or hear it fail. Right. Back together. First start up. I haven't even cranked the engine or nothing at the minute. So this is going to be the first start up. So it's either going to be a very happy day or, oh shit. I hate doing time belts. You can check them 1,000 times over, and still, until it starts and runs, you're never going to be that convinced that it's going to work properly. But we'll see how it goes. First starter. Take that as a win. Now, we had glugging noises around. I'm assuming it's just got to breathe it out. Now, it's a quick run. It's like, it's nearly 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. I want to go home. We're going to, well, it's still very so I think we're going to have a barbecue tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. I've got the arch liner to put back on, the under tray to put back on, the wheel to put back on, drop it down onto its wheels and bleed it through, basically run it up, make sure it's right. And then I think I might even give it a little wash for her because she likes to run it a little bit dirty. But yeah, no, happy as Larry, take that as a win, and see you in the morning.